Well, hello there, and welcome to A Film a Day with me, Jordan Woodley. And today I thought I'd do a bit of throwback blockbuster action, considering we're now in blockbuster season, with 1995's Bad Boys. It's funny, really, because people, of course, there's something about the Bad Boys trilogy, I suppose you'd call it now, that has permeated pop culture insofar as everyone has either seen a bit of, or is aware of, or has seen some semblance of the Bad Boys franchise. Particularly, in my experience, Bad Boys 2. Which is the one that everyone refers to and has the most recognisable pop culture moments. But it's funny because Bad Boys is fairly small, not particularly. It's very much a film that could, an action film that could, but there's nothing in it that's particularly remarkable. And yet, as I say, it really has this long-lasting legacy that people, constantly refer back to, and it made Will Smith. To the point where, you have that joke in Hot Fuzz when he says, what do you want to watch first, Point Break or Bad Boys 2? And he says, oh, well, I don't know, which one would you prefer to watch? And he goes, no, not to watch first. And, the sort of the style of Michael Bay has influenced action and action style, of course, over the last 30 years. Now, notwithstanding, Michael Bay is a cinematically difficult figure in terms of where he lies in respect of the Transformers franchise. Really didn't do the Transformers as a IP or Michael Bay's career any favours. It made billions. Of course, it made him billions. It made the Transformers billions. However, it has so overshadowed the Transformers as a cinematic entity that even when they've tried to get away with the Bumblebee film and they've continued to try and consider how they will reimagine the Transformers, the Michael Bay films, the shadow of the Michael Bay films will be long cast, and I think it'll be a long time before we get an interpretation of the Transformers franchise that isn't sort of put against or bundled together with Michael Bay's vision, which admittedly is not great. And I personally, I do like the very first one, and that's it. And the rest of the franchise is just a mess of visuals, of poor storytelling, of barely conceived ideas that frankly don't hold together with gum. But unfortunately, it's sort of done the same thing to the Transformers as it's done to Michael Bay's career, which is Michael Bay, for everything you can say about him, is within the pure definition of it, is an auteur. In terms of, when you're watching a Michael Bay film, and his style is so distinct for every film he directs that it really starts to shift the filmmaking process around him, and that cannot be ignored. And it's unfortunate because I think even though he had a 15-year career before the Transformers, his legacy will be those films. Because, if you think of the pre-Transformers Michael Bay, if you think of Bad Boys and Bad Boys 2, The Rock, Armageddon, it doesn't matter how good or bad they are. They, as I said, defined action as a genre, redefined it and brought it to a new decade, so that every action film that has followed has in some way been influenced by the style of one of Michael Bay's films. And it's interesting to go back to Bad Boys 1, because frankly, Bad Boys 1, which I know is early Michael Bay. This is before maybe he sort of defined his voice. But it's very standard. It is a very standard cop action drama of the 90s. And there are elements of it that are interesting. This is a early Will Smith. This is you know coming to the end of Fresh Prince era, but he not even really cut his teeth in films. He's only been in 2 or 3 films at this point, and the next film he'll be in is Independence Day. So this isn't blockbuster Will Smith. This is admired actor Will Smith, the Fresh Prince. He's still at this point seen as rapper Will Smith, who just did a bit of acting. And Martin Lawrence, who, though known for his stand-up comedy, at this point isn't known for being the comedy actor that he would go on to be with things like Big Mama's House and Black Knight. And you put these elements together, and as you're watching it, you can see the potential. You can look back over 30 years and see the seeds being laid of all of these things. You can see the writing style and the directorial vision that Michael Bay likes to bring into his films. You can see the charisma of Will Smith, and you can see the comedy chops of Martin Lawrence. And again, they work so well together. These 3 elements really do come together well. But even then, the film around it, I found quite dull. Like, it's as I say, it's the 90s is, of course, that peak era where we'd gone from your big style Commando, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone type action, and made it more urban centric. So, those aforementioned actors are now no longer army men fighting in the jungles or deserts of different countries, or they're not military guys anymore, sort of post-Vietnam style. Now they're police detectives, or they're gritty private detectives who also seem, or have this military background behind them, or they're spies, and the settings in the 90s become much more urban and much more about sort of the concrete jungle and dealing with, gang, particularly in American action, becomes specifically about, dealing with American gangs or drug dealers or things that are much closer, more domestic. And amongst this, so you have, of course, the buddy cop thing, which Shane Black has brought in at this point with Lethal Weapon, and you. Bad Boys really sort of just sits there amongst all of this, and you watch it and you go, "Oh, this is kind of dull." I mean, like I said, Martin Lawrence and Will Smith have great chemistry, and their banter is good. It gets a little bit tiring when it goes on too long. That's fair. Thea Leone actually is really good in this. I think she actually does make the 3rd element to this that actually really balances it out, so you don't feel like you're getting too much Martin Lawrence and Will Smith. Other than that, the film around them is very underwhelming. You have this sort of not conspiracy thriller, but like as in there's a corrupt cop amongst the ranks somewhere who the gangsters are involved with, but it's barely a plot line. The gangsters and the drug dealers themselves aren't particularly interesting. They're not threatening. They are very much the business-suited villains that, again, you do get during this period, very much in the same way as Die Hard. But whereas Alan Rickman, of course, brings personality to his suited villain, the lead villain in this is some guy with a French accent, and he has a bunch of thugs, and then none of them... It's almost video game levels of uninteresting. And like I say, there are moments of... Like, the fact that the film decides to insert this, like, life swap concept where Martin Lawrence has to play the bachelor to trick Thea Leone, and Will Smith, therefore, is having to live with Martin Lawrence's family and sort of play the sort of domestic... man, like domestic husband-ish role, although he's not having to play it, that's the circumstances he's living in, is kind of interesting and leads to like comedy potential, and there are moments that are very funny. Admittedly, yes, it doesn't age well. The PC aspect of it is difficult. There are There is still that gay joke problem that it has, that ages like sour milk, frankly. But that is the 90s, and it just is. And it's not funny anymore, but it's not something that can just be exercised. And then you maybe have like some of the racial stuff, but even then, at least some of it's funny. Like, you have the guy in the convenience store who threatens them, and actually, despite, yes, the sort of subtext of it being a little bit questionable, it is still a funny interaction. And them having to deal with random people in that way is quite funny. When it comes to the action side of it, it does have Michael Bay's signature explosion. There will come a point where there are just explosions anywhere and gunfire. And this isn't really a police comedy, drama, or whatever you want to call it. Action comedy. Because frankly, these are, I mean, in 2021, police-centric storytelling is something that is definitely not doing well right now. It's not something that people necessarily are that keen to explore. But even watching this, you think this isn't really a police drama that's trying to sort of present, police who just have to be a bit rougher with people. These people are like, these policemen, these detectives, are practically like self-styled one-men armies. As I say, it's a hangover from the action of the 80s, where, yes, they work in a precinct, they are bound by rules, but anytime a gun comes out, they're in a massive shootout, everything explodes. It's ludicrous to the point where you have to just say, this is a comic book world, this is a cartoon, this is a, whatever. This is not our real world and understanding of how police action would work. And yeah, it has moments, like I say, it has moments of fun and shows the potential of everything, but frankly, like I say, it's very dull for long stretches. And that's weird. And I know Bad Boys 2, with a much more confident Michael Bay, at this point, a star vehicle Will Smith and a Martin Lawrence who just knows how to just make comedy snap, is much stronger. But it's interesting to see the fact that we went from this to that nearly a decade later, and then to Bad Boys for Life. Now, I don't know if at some point I'll go back to Bad Boys 2 and Bad Boys for Life, which I haven't seen the third one, I will admit. It won't be anytime soon. It's not going to be like a trilogy where I watch them day after day, but it would be interesting to come back to them one by one over the course of this series. But yeah, it's interesting to go back. 1995, what a strange year for action drama. Anyway, thank you for joining me. If you like this video, please hit the like button, comment below, and share the video because it will help me in the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel and hit that little bell to get notifications for when new videos are uploaded. And do check out my back catalogue of over 150 reviews. Follow me on Twitter at Jordan_Woodley, where I'm always tweeting about films and TV shows. And I share these videos once they're uploaded on YouTube, normally the day after they've been uploaded. Thank you for joining me. Take care.